If we want whole body muscle to be retained or grown, then we have to incorporate some type of whole body strength training into our lives, because it is a use it or lose it phenomenon when it comes to muscle. We don't just keep it because we were a gymnast when we were in high school.
Hey y'all, this is Kosta, and today I'm here with my guest, David Greenwalt, certified wellness coach, author, professional member of the National Strength and Conditioning Association, and founder of Leanness Lifestyle University. Today we're talking about fitness, aging, and what's missing. So David, before we get into the episode, will you tell our listeners a bit about your background and how you became a wellness coach and author?
You bet. Thanks so much for having me. It's a really pleasure to be here. So, for whatever reason, fitness has been in my DNA since I was just a little boy. I remember in grade school, I wanted the President's Physical Fitness Council Award. They had this award if you had to throw a baseball a certain distance, broad jump a certain distance, and do these things. And I'm 10, 11 years old, and don't ask me why, but I wanted that award. I thought it'd be so cool, and I did get it a couple of times, and I remember feeling so proud. I still have the patch. I still have the patch in the certificate from 6th grade or whatever it was. But I went on, and as I became a young adult, I got into bodybuilding, and I did powerlifting throughout my 20s and 30s. And during that time, I was a police officer as well. I had owned a gym, but while I was an Illinois State Trooper, I graduated from the academy, and within about a year, I started this dietary supplement company. I don't sell any supplements now, but I started this supplement company because out of a tiny little room in my house, because I wanted to just make enough money to pay for my own protein powder. I just wanted to, if I could just pay for my own protein powder, I was going to be happy with that level of profit. And as it turned out, there was no internet back then or anything. I placed little classified ads in the back of bodybuilding magazines and had a toll-free number for them to call. So we were all mail order. And I shipped it from my house. I'm packing stuff in my house, and I had to have, UPS or whoever come to the house, or I had to take it to the local. So anyway, over the course of about 5 or 6 years, I built that company into about $7 million in annual revenue and about 45 employees. It was a huge surprise to me. I didn't have any business people in my life. I didn't have, I grew up very blue collar, a wonderful family, but no business acumen really. And when that happened, so we had over 100,000 customers, and then the internet was coming in. And so people knew that I had done bodybuilding and powerlifting. They knew I had gotten very lean. I had also gotten quite heavy as a powerlifter. At one time, I was 235 pounds and on 5'10". And
wow.
I had, the thing about powerlifting, you've got to get big so you can be strong, and I did that. It's just that I probably didn't need that pound bag of M&Ms as a pre-workout, so I got to 235 pounds, and finally I said, that's enough. It's too heavy. Come on, David, it's getting ridiculous now. And anyway, I leaned out, did a bodybuilding show again. So all this is going on. I'm an Illinois State Trooper. I'm running this supplement company. I've got 100,000 customers. And the internet comes in, and we've got email. Imagine that. We've got email, something that you can, have a two-way conversation with people with. And people were emailing me saying, hey, Dave, how can I lose 30 pounds and keep it off? How can I lose 50 pounds and keep it off? How can I, whatever the case may be. And I was trying to answer in an email. And I quickly learned that I was doing them a disservice by trying to put it on the back of a napkin or, a bumper sticker answer. And so I wrote a book, almost 500 pages, that addressed nutrition and exercise and emotional fitness. And I wanted all of that in there so that I could be as comprehensive as I could. The internet was really coming in now. Now we had websites. Wow, we have websites.
Absolutely.
And so I created a program online. And what happened was, I knew that I had more in me, and I had such a passion for wanting to help people get from someplace unhealthy, unfit, overweight or whatever to the better, healthier place that they wanted to go to. Not that I wanted them to go to. It's their goal. What they wanted to do, I wanted to help them get there and do it in an evidence-based way, doing it a good way, a way that they could share with their physician, their friends, their family, and feel good about it, proud of what they were doing, and be able to stand their ground on what they were doing instead of some gimmicky, things, so many things that are out there. And I just knew that I just knew that on my headstone when I finally passed, I didn't want it to say, his prices were really cheap, and he had really fast shipping.
Absolutely, I hear
you. I just
you.
wanted my legacy. I just knew that I had more in me to share, so that's why I wrote the book. I created the program. So I sold the supplement company, and I went all in on being a health coach focused on weight management, and then all around fitness. And I've been doing that online virtually since 1999.
So you've been doing it virtually, and when you say that, the first thing that pops into my head is pandemic. And so I'm curious, what was the experience like? Because you had so much, you've been doing it for so many years already. So when the pandemic hits and everything goes virtual, what was that like for you?
Absolutely. So there was almost no transition for us because we were just so used to it. I haven't met 99% of my clients in person. Mm-hmm. I've maybe only met 1%. Right. But here's what was going on. Once a year, we have a rolling start, so people can start with us anytime they want. They don't have to wait for a particular start. But once a year, we'll do everybody starts together and everybody finishes together, kind of a larger cohort kind of thing. And we had about 150 people that had raised their hand and said, yes, I want to do this. And this was in February of 2020.
Okay, so right before.
Here we go, right? None of us knows what's coming. And because this is always evolving and changing, and doing anything live, anything video like we're doing now even, it really was pretty new to me. I hadn't gotten into that. And I promised the group, I said, listen, I'm not promising anything more than this, but I'll give you 5 Facebook Lives, okay? We're going to do this thing. The program's 18 weeks, but I'm going to do 5. I promise you 5 because I don't want to, overpromise. So I'm going to promise you 5. And then we'll see what happens, and that's it. Well, so we start, and we're doing once a week. And here comes the pandemic.
And you got 6 weeks in.
And so we get like to that 5th week, and now we're all seeing it, feeling it. The news is just 24/7 of we don't know what's going on. What is this thing? There's anxiety, there's nervousness. We don't know is it going to be gone by summer? What is this thing? It's killing people, and they don't know what it is yet, and they don't have a vaccine. And, so there was all of this, and I thought to myself, 80-90% of what I do with my clients is in that emotional fitness space. Mm-hmm. Because I can teach people what they need to know about nutrition in about an hour. Don't get me wrong, not all the nuanced and not all the super detailed granular stuff, but at the macro level, I can teach you what you need to know about nutrition in about an hour, teach you what you need to know about exercise for health and fitness and longevity in about an hour. But the thing that keeps those two things consistent on crazy, busy, stressful days when life has other plans, a great part of that is the emotional fitness leg of the stool, as I say. There's 3 legs. There's at least 3 legs of the stool. And so because I spent so much time on emotional fitness, and because what was going on was so emotional fitness related, anxiety, the stress and the fear of the unknown, and what we can control and what we cannot control. And I just thought to myself, there's no way I can stop doing these weekly lives. And I'm going to turn them, in fact, into really, really heavy and as useful as I can on emotional fitness. Like, how do we how do we really feel that sense of control over the things, and on and on and on. So I can't say long story short because I've monologued here, but I will say this. I promised 5. I just finished my 154th in a row.
Congratulations, man. That is incredible. 154 weeks?
154 Wednesdays in a row. And
wow.
I've even done it when I had COVID, which was a few months back. And I look like death warmed over. I don't make light of COVID at all. It's very serious. But I do say there's Baskin Robbins 31 flavors there's 31 flavors of COVID. And the 31 the flavor I had was tiredness, fever, sore throat, but that was it. Fortunately, thankfully, I'm grateful that that's what it was for me, and I don't in any way, shape, or form make light of all the variations that are crazy serious.
So, as you were developing this program, and you focus a lot on emotional fitness, you obviously have other components with regards to nutrition and exercise. So, how do you approach people that are aging? And what type of recommendations do you have for them? But what I'm most curious about is, as you've been doing this work, what are the greatest risk factors that we face physically in our elder years?
Well, it's incredibly important that we do what we are able to, what we're capable of, what we can control with regard to the nutritional and exercise components, because as we get older, the risk of losing our independence goes up considerably.
Absolutely.
If we aren't in at least good enough health, good enough fitness to be able to stay ambulatory, and to be able to manage activities of daily living,
Yes.
To be able to maintain that is so important for all of us, and maintaining a reasonable level of cardiorespiratory endurance. Nobody needs to be an endurance athlete, but
of course,
having a baseline of cardiorespiratory endurance, aerobic capacity, having a baseline reasonable level of muscular strength and endurance, and then also being at a reasonably healthy weight. You don't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be that perfect body mass index, but being at a reasonably healthy weight can help us to remain independent, but also to reduce the risk of falls, because that's one of the greatest factors that can accelerate a decline and I'm just going to say it, and death, because the science is very strong in that area that depending on age, breaking the hip, breaking a bone, whatever, the process that often results after that can be quite detrimental to, future independence and even life.
And usually it follows with institutionalization of some kind, whether it's a nursing home or assisted living facility. People tend to lose their independence. And a lot of times, and we're going to talk a little bit about this later in the show, but a lot of times I feel like those type of settings don't focus enough on emotional fitness, on fitness in general, or nutrition for that matter. So we're going to talk about sarcopenia and how it affects the body and why it's important to maintain muscle mass. But I am curious, when you're talking, because I know most of your clientele are between the ages of like 40 and 55, right? But when you're talking to them, do you ever have conversations about, hey, you need to start incorporating this, whether it's an exercise routine or this pattern of nutrition now, because if you don't do it now and you don't make it into a habit, if you wait too long, you're going to have negative health effects and, affecting those independence. What are those conversations like?
Every single day.
Okay.
Literally every single client. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are aware. And that's the thing. They come to me because they want change. They come to me because they want to improve in some way, and they're trying to figure out, the best avenues to have it applied to them.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at the individual. We're going to meet them where they are. First of all, I want to say that. So we do have, my client range is 18 to 85. My most common clients these days are probably 40 to 65, somewhere right in there. So with that being the case, it's for every single person, though, it's incredibly important that we are looking at an exercise program that does incorporate not only the cardio side of things, which can be everything from walking to, you name it, running, whatever, but also the strength training component. Because with sarcopenia, which your listeners may be aware of, but sarcopenia is the quote-unquote natural age-related decline of muscle. And
though?
Yeah, say that again.
I said, is it actually natural?
See, that's the thing. I throw natural in quotes because it is if you don't counter it. It is if you don't do something to counter this natural effect. However, a huge percentage of it can be minimized or mitigated with regular strength training. And I want to say this too. A lot of people are confused on this. They say, God, I'm doing my strength training. I go out and I walk every day, Dave. In fact, I do hiking. I walk up hills and I do things like that. So my strength training's good. That's not strength training. I'm not saying that it's zero, but we aren't going to maintain muscle with walking and general hiking and things like that. We're going to have to incorporate, if we want whole body muscle to be retained or grown, then we have to incorporate some type of whole body strength training into our lives, because it is a use it or lose it phenomenon when it comes to muscle. We don't just keep it because we were a gymnast when we were in high school.
Right.
You know, I say that because I get clients that are just confused, and it's okay. Look, I do what I do. I'm an expert in this area. That's fine. They do what they do, and I'm amazed by what people do for their profession. So when they come in, they may think, yeah, I played football in high school, so I've got a lot of muscle. You're 60. You know, it's been 42 years since you were in high school. That muscle is gone unless you've done something proactively to keep it.
Well, so let's talk about that conversation with a 60-year-old client or a 70-year-old client. You know, what are like easy and scalable ways to incorporate exercise routines when, say, that client may be having issues with mobility and unable to work out independently? Right,
absolutely. So what I say is there's always a way. And there's always a way to scale something to the level that you can do it. You know, some people, you say, you know, let's just mention an air squat. Okay? An air squat is just a body weight squat, okay, where your feet stay flat on the ground. And the idea is to get the hip crease to about the level of the top of the knee or just below it. That's a full air squat.
Nice.
Okay? And then stand back up. Well, that's great. But if your knees or your hips or some other mobility issue or some other injury from the past or some other surgery you've had or whatever limits that range of motion, then we reduce the range of motion to the point where there's no pain. We don't. Let me say this. You know, you can have a little bit of muscle burn. That's that. Everybody says, you know, no pain, no gain. I'm okay with a little bit of muscle burn if we're doing a certain number of reps. You go, oh, my muscles are burning a little bit. Okay, and then we probably don't need to go too much further or further at all. But I don't want the wrong kind of pain. I don't want joint pain. I don't want the structural pain. You know, so if we want to, you know, eliminate that, I don't want that at all. I don't.
Sure.
So maybe we'll squat to a chair. Maybe we'll squat to something higher than a chair. Maybe we'll do something like that where we can, and again, just keeping it simple just for the air squat, we're going to find a way where we can do some kind of movement in that way. And if we can't squat at all, okay, is there another lower body movement of some kind where maybe someone has access to a full gym? Maybe they do. And if they do, maybe we can sit on a machine and do leg extensions. Maybe we can do a leg press. There may be something else we can do. So we find out from our members, what do they have access to? I always say, what toys do you have? You know, you know, whether it's a full gym, is it just your body? Do you have anything at home? Do you have access to a rec center? And so once we find out what toys they have, implements, then we can help them figure out the best way to utilize that. And if there is just lower body, other than walking, they just can't do really strength much at all with lower body because they don't have access or it's limitations, injuries, pain, that kind of thing, then we're going to focus on doing what we can. You know, it's all about, you know, focusing on what we can do. So we're going to focus on the upper body.
Is that because the emotional health, the emotional wellness that comes with exercise, whether you're just able to work on your upper body as opposed to your lower body, it may not be a full body workout, but the fact that you're going to get that emotional well-being, you feel like is so important? Yeah,
it's really, you know, multifaceted. Yes, you know, I say to my clients all the time, you know, to the extent that you're able to, exercise is fantastic for all of the caloric burn benefits and all of the fitness benefits related to exercise itself with regard to, again, you know, cardiorespiratory, muscular strength and endurance. That's great. And the energy expenditure, the calories burned and all that with regard to weight management and all that, that's fantastic. But I say that's secondary to the mental health, emotional health benefits that we get from exercise, anxiety reduction, depression reduction. Exercise has been found, I'm not saying across the board, but exercise has been found to be as effective or more effective than many drugs that are used to treat anxiety and depression and so forth. And then, what's it do for just kind of mental clarity? What's it do if you are able to sweat a little bit, okay?
Sure.
Get the movement in. What's that do to your cognitive ability? It increases it. What's it do to clarity? It increases it. What's it do to help maintain the drive to want to then eat well, compared to feeling down or low,
sure,
and a little depressed, or having the anxiety that kind of ramps up those urges and cravings to turn to the comfort food, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, they think that anxiety and depression is like a young person's problem, if you're, what do you got to be depressed about if you're over 65 and you're retired, right? But it's actually a significant issue. And you touched on cognitive improvements, mental clarity, and Alzheimer's and dementia is a significant issue in our country. It affects a large swath of the American population, and there's been studies that have proven that regular exercise reduces the plaque that's built up in your brain that causes those types of disabilities. So, I just wanted to kind of tie those two things together. I am curious, how do you feel about water aerobics? Because I know that's a very popular exercise for people that are aging. Is that something that you recommend and consider to be efficient and effective?
I love the fact that it's moving. I love the fact that it's going to be kind of a total body movement. Because one of the things I love about water when it comes to people that maybe have limitations or who are quite heavy is water just kind of makes it more of a level playing field, where
yes,
even if someone is, 300 pounds on 5'5", once you get into water, it just changes everything and it makes everything much more doable. So I love it for that. Now, I'm not just saying it's for heavy people. No, it's for anyone. With respect to, does it significantly impact fitness as measured by standard fitness parameters? I would say it's going to, depending on where you started.
Sure.
Right? So if you're very deconditioned and you haven't done much, or anything, for quite some time, you're going to see a significant improvement with it. At a certain point, like so many things, it's going to kind of level out, and it's probably not going to be a movement that raises fitness to a high level. But but I can see it impacting very much so in a positive way fitness overall, especially for those that. Here's the thing, some answers are, what exercise should we do? And a lot of times the answer is the one you will do, right?
Yep.
And so if it's enjoyable, and a lot of times with water aerobics, as you know, it's community, it's connection, and what's the benefit of that? There's a tremendous benefit in that if you feel that. Yeah, right. If you feel that community, you feel that connection, and it's something you look forward to, and you say, I am going to go do that, I am just applauding. I'm like, it's great. Now, just me, because I know the impact, the positive impact of real strength training. If we can get some of that in there, then I'm going to want some of that if we can, because I know how prevalent sarcopenia is, and I'm going to say water aerobics is not likely to prevent fully the loss.
It's like a step one, it's like, hey, especially with mobility issues and limited range of motion, like if you have those things and you need to start to sort of get more flexible and hopefully get to a point to where you can strength train, I think starting with water aerobics is important, and maybe incorporating some physical therapy in there as well.
Sure.
Excuse me. I'm so sorry. What do you believe is the biggest misconception about aging and fitness?
I think that there's a misconception that it only goes downhill from here. From whatever point it is. It's funny. Being late 50s where I am, I see people in their 30s who think they're over the hump now. And you go. It's, come on, I think of it, now I got kids that age. I'm like, you're just a baby still,
That's
you
right.
are so young. But regardless of when it is, there's a conception, maybe, especially like it maybe more at 40 or whatever, like it's just kind of all downhill from here. That absolutely is not the case. There are people who don't start till they're 50, 60, 65. They never really did much fitness, and they don't start till then. And their fitness can improve. So I would say the biggest misconception is these paradigms are self-imposed limitations where, I won't be able to get to any kind of level of good fitness. I won't be able to get any kind of appreciable new muscle on my body. Not true. I won't be able to improve my aerobic capacity to be able to, bear with me, maybe fast walk a 5K or run a 5K or what. I'll never be able to do that because I'm starting at 60 or I'm starting at 50 and it's all downhill from here and I'm too old. Not true, not true, not true. No matter what age you are, especially if you haven't done much, the ability to improve is tremendous. I would be just so hopeful. I love it when, a 70-year-old comes to me and they are, wherever they are, they typically aren't elite athletes. That's not my clientele. My clientele is the everyday person who is trying to get in better health, better shape, control their weight, feel better, that kind of thing. I love working with people of all ages, and I especially love people that are, in that age range because when they do it, they're so surprised at what they were able to do.
Absolutely. So, Dave, is it more important to maintain nutritional balance or physical fitness? And can we survive with one or the other?
Can you survive with one or the? I mean, at some level, obviously, we need both. But it's going to be a huge continuum as far as where people are on that. With regard to health span, which is basically how good we feel and what we're able to do while we're alive, compared to lifespan, which is how long we live, nutrition and exercise are greatly going to impact both. But they're I would say, I don't know exactly. The research doesn't really know either. But I would say that in my head, as I'm just speaking this right now, I would say that how we feel, what we're able to do, and all those health span related things are so greatly impacted by both the nutrition and exercise component. There's a saying that goes, again, oversimplified, there's a saying that goes, abs are made in the kitchen.
Yep.
All right. And fitness is made in the gym. So that's not entirely true. That is an oversimplification. But with regard to weight management, we need both. The nutrition is going to be the more important component, typically speaking, with regard to weight management. But it's a chicken and the egg and a circular thing, because if we're exercising, we're mentally feeling better. We are, again, sharper. We have less anxiety, less depressive things. And we feel more motivated to want to do the nutrition. And if we're doing things nutritionally, we have more mental energy. Yeah, we do, to want to then, do the exercise instead of feeling so sluggish and down, which could be just nutritionally related.
Well, and Dave, these things, right? And you're talking to people and teaching people all the time, like, hey, these two components are so important and they tie to your mental health. And I want to take this into what we see a lot in the aging population, specifically with people that go into nursing homes. And they typically go into nursing homes or assisted living facilities because they've suffered some type of significant injury, or their chronic illness has gotten to a point to where it's just unmanageable by themselves or their loved ones. So when I go into nursing homes, and I see the environment, and I see people kind of laying in their bed and, sitting in their wheelchairs, and I don't see the mantra that you're talking about, which is like, exercise and good nutrition will lead to better outcomes for your overall mental health, will make you happier. And there is an epidemic within the nursing home industry of depression, obviously caused by forms of isolation and other things. Why do you think that we don't put enough emphasis on those environments when you yourself know how important they are?
Honestly, I get emotional at even hearing the way you describe it because I know it's true.
Yeah.
And I mean that. I really do. It breaks my heart that this is what is happening in these facilities. Mm-hmm. It's a resource issue. It's a money issue. It's a priority, a priorities issue. Mm-hmm. And it just breaks my heart. It should not be, in my opinion, that whatever age it is, the person is, that they should have to live without an ability to, even if we, at that level, we just say, move with intention. Maybe we're not talking about this super structured exercise, and, I'm not talking about going intense here. Just be able to move with intention, to move for well-being, to move in ways that you just feel better because you're doing things, and then nutritionally you're being served in a way that we know positively impacts all the things you and I are talking about here, reduces inflammation, the joint pain,
absolutely,
cognitive function, as we're talking about, metabolic health, all the things that reduce, cardiovascular disease and the risk of cancer, and just all of those non-communicable disease issues, diabetes, and all these things. Really, it just breaks my heart that we don't. And when I see, probably you're much more, obviously involved, in this community. I see they come to me. They're not in a facility. They are still, so it just breaks my heart to hear it. I so wish we as a society gave it a higher priority and put the focus on it so that no person should have to feel that and live that. It just is wrong. Just shouldn't be.
And I'll tell you, we started this show around providing education about the long-term care industry, and it's slowly starting to pivot into asking the why question over and over again, because it doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you, you're talking to people who are trying to incorporate these disciplines into their life because they're trying to keep from having to go to an institution of some sort, a facility. And so I think the overarching message of this episode is physical exercise, any physical exercise, but preferably strength training, will give us the tools to prevent things like sarcopenia, which affects between 11 and 50% of adults over the age of 80. And I know that's a wide range, but still that's technically 1 in 10. So it's safe to say, 2 in 10 adults. But secondary to that, the nutrition component, and we could go down a a rabbit hole of reasons why people that are over the age of 65 may not have access to proper nutrition, but the nutritional component, I think, is just as important. And we obviously want that mental health and well-being to be a priority. So,
absolutely. And, I can't stress enough that if a listener is able to control what they're buying, what they're eating, if they have total control over that still, I can't stress enough how important it is that people discern and know the difference between real food and ultra-processed food. All food is not food. I don't even call ultra-processed food food.
Expand on that.
Yeah, so there's this kind of notion out there that all things in moderation. We've all heard that.
Sure.
A problem with that is, I say, and this, hopefully this will be clear in a moment, all things in moderation, including moderation. And so, generally speaking, I get it. Living in moderation in our world, I get it. Don't overdo, don't okay, moderation. But when it comes to nutrition, people they just hear that message. And here we are in the United States with the adult population sitting at 43% obese.
Yeah.
In 1970, we were 15% obese, and we're supposed to be 50% obese by 2030. We are losing this battle. And part of that reason, nothing's a single thing, but part of that reason is the messaging from top down has been incredibly ineffective, grossly ineffective. And a part of that messaging has been all things in moderation. What people don't realize is they're lumping all food into a pile called food. I don't, and it needs to be separated. So real food versus ultra-processed. Here's my definition that I've extrapolated from other research. I didn't invent this, but this is my extrapolation from research on the subject of discerning real food from ultra-processed. Real food, whole or minimally processed, edible parts of plant and animal that, if anything's been added to it, are things commonly found in kitchens. Okay. So take it away. What strikes you about that? You want me to say it again, or you got it?
No. I mean, so real food is essentially like salad, fruit, steak, hamburger. I mean, it doesn't obviously have to be those cliche, healthy things. Right. But it needs to be real food. And I'm assuming when you describe ultra processed foods, I immediately think of like Chips Ahoy cookies.
Yes.
Sure. Like Lay's potato chips.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I go, I've got 4 kids that are all in school. When I go to their school, they're already being conditioned for chicken nuggets and, which I know, granted, that has chicken in it.
Yeah.
But,
probably.
But I mean, yes, exactly. Right. Does it though?
It probably does.
It doesn't look like chicken.
I know.
They're already getting conditioned for, hey, there's, it's chicken nuggets and potato chips or French fries.
Yeah.
Or it's pizza. And it's strange because when you go to like places like Germany or expensive private schools in the United States, like they serve like actual meals at lunch.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I do.
So we always like to end the show with a call to action. What's your best advice for aging clients, their loved ones, or caregivers to prioritize physical health and nutrition?
First off, it is not too late to begin, improve whatever direction you are. If you're, it's not so much about where you're standing, it really is the direction you're facing. So as long as you're wanting to improve, whether you haven't done or you have done, you can improve. So, at the most very basic level, the most get started level, I'm going to see where they're at, and I'm going to suggest that they move more toward eating more real food Okay.
Good.
That they understand the difference between real food, processed, ultra processed, and so they know how to move more toward real food. We're going to talk about, I'm going to teach them the benefits of doing so that it's not just some moral, ethical thing. It's not about that. There's nothing in me about that at all. You're not a better person for doing it. I just want you to improve all of the areas of health span and lifespan, for doing it. So you get what you want and that we all want. So move more toward real food. And then I want to find out there may be things you can't do, and I want to know that, but I want to know, we're going to figure out together what you can do physically. And then we want to start where you are there and either continue if you've got something really good going, or we want to start literally to put one foot in front of the other if possible and start really small. The last thing I want to do is give someone a plan that either creates incredible soreness or that is discouraging because it's just crazy. Kosta, I see work. I'm in my late 50s, but I've been in fitness for 40 years, and I see workouts where I'm like, that's ridiculous. Someone's going to get hurt doing that. So we want to make sure safety is always the first thing, making sure that it is progressive and with intention and meets that person where they are. But I'd like to get you moving in some way that is aerobic capacity oriented. And I'm talking about breathing super hard necessarily, but just something that's more aerobic. And I definitely want you to do something really small but consistent that's strength oriented. And this can be 5 minutes of something. So I'm really talking small, where someone says, one of the things that as I've gotten older, I used to think when I was in my 30s, that people that are still out in free living society, once they hit their 60s, they had nothing but free time. Nothing but free.
Right.
You have all the time in the world. It's done. You've got it. And now that I'm where I'm at, and my clients are often in their 60s and whatever, they're still incredibly busy. Maybe not as busy as you are right now with kids at home and all that stuff, and that's to be acknowledged. But they still got stuff going on. So I want to be able to meet them where they are, and we still have potentially, if they're retired and they truly are, we've got more time to play with. But I want to meet them where they are with time. So we're going to move toward real food. We're going to start to move purposefully, with the aerobic side being taken care of, and with that all-important sarcopenia muscle retention side being addressed, because we've got to acknowledge that you're not going to keep that muscle just because you're moving. And then I want to see how, if those things, those basic things, for whatever reason, don't seem to be done consistently, even if they are, we're going to keep working to help our clients become better life managers through that emotional fitness component. So we want to continue to support their growth on the inside. And for me, no matter how old I get, now I feel even more so that I just want to continue growing and learning. And I want to continue just becoming better able to, manage all that life continually puts in front of us. And so we want to help them with that as well, because again, something I may have thought in my 30s, I do not think now, which is like, again, once you're in your 60s and 70s and 80s, there's no stress, it's just going to be, it's easy going. And, it's all that stuff. You're like, they're going to have it all figured out. Heck, I thought when I was 18, my 38-year-old parents had it all figured out. We change as we grow older and hopefully wiser. So anyway, I'm just saying that, nutrition, start small, exercise, movement, start small, and then I want to help them work on that emotional fitness side as needed. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and that's kind of, I guess my parting message here is that we have to meet people where they are. It's not a one-size-fits-all, and we have to look at all of this kind of comprehensively instead of coming at this with just this or just that, because that's part of what's gotten us where we are as a society. And I don't know, I'm a positive person, and I'm hopeful that in time the paradigm can shift on priority for what you were talking about earlier, because it just shouldn't be. And I want to do everything I can for the people that are still not there, to do everything I can to help them not have to go there.